Hey everybody, my name's Kenny. I'm the founder and CEO of STR Insights. I apologize, not in that black polo today, but this is my first live interview. I'm super excited. Normally I do these things over Zoom or, we're doing it on StreamYard, we're streaming them. And so I don't have to really deal with Wi-Fi, which is exciting. But this interview, I've got Sarah Sakhel. She is a realtor from the Texas Hill Country. She's not just a realtor; she's a short-term rental realtor. She owns and manages over 7 properties. She has been a realtor in that market in the Texas Hill Country for over 7 years now. The reason why I wanted to talk about the Texas Hill Country was because we've really seen a lot of investors and excitement about that area, especially as it's grown. It's definitely been an emerging market over the last 5 years. We're going to get into the data and the reasons why with Sarah. But what I want to really do is dive into why this market can be attractive, because a lot of people from the outside, when they look in, they see the housing prices there and it kind of turns them away from it. However, there's a lot to offer in the Texas Hill Country. I'm going to let Sarah talk more about, what there is to do, but it's a beautiful area if you haven't checked it out before. And so I'm excited to hear about it. I've just seen some really positive growth numbers from it. And as deals become more and more affordable, that market has become more attractive. And so without further ado, let me introduce Sarah here. Sarah, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in.
Okay, so Sarah, you're in the Texas Hill Country. You live in New Braunfels.
Mm-hmm.
So New Braunfels is outside of, how far is that from San Antonio?
About 30 minutes off the I-35 corridor going north to Austin.
Okay, and I guess to back up a little bit, let's just talk about what the Texas Hill Country is. So can you first tell everybody, like, what cities, what towns, make up the Texas Hill Country?
So the Texas Hill Country sits right in the middle of the state of Texas. So there's 4 major cities in the state of Texas. You got Dallas, which is a north part, Houston, Austin, which is in the middle, which that's where our capital is, and then you have San Antonio. And the Texas Hill Country sits right between Austin and San Antonio. So it's very centrally located. It's beautiful hills, just something that you wouldn't expect. Everybody thinks Texas is like rolling tumbleweeds and cowboys, but that's totally not it. So yes, it sits right there. So it's very central. You're like 4 hours from Dallas, 3.5 hours from Houston, about an hour and a half from Austin, and about an hour and a half from San Antonio.
So if you were to drive from San Antonio to Austin, it's about 3 hours, like
San Antonio to Austin is an hour and a half if you're like downtown to downtown.
Okay.
Depending on traffic. San Antonio to Houston is about 3 hours, 2 hours. It depends. You hit Katy.
Okay.
There has been talks of building a bullet train to all the connecting cities, so you could just hop on the train and go to each city. Is it kind of been a future plan for Texas?
Wow, that's awesome. Now, this area has really exploded recently, right? And when I say recently, what does that mean in terms of explosion? Is this just COVID recent, or is it, before that as well?
So that's a great question. I pulled data from 5 years ago to not just give us a COVID look, but to have a few years prior. Texas, in 2017, 18, 19 saw an average of 3 to 6% appreciation. But over that 5-year period of time, Texas has seen a 34% increase in the housing market. And that is due to just a lot of economic growth in the Texas area. So now 34% is just kind of the central Texas, Austin, San Antonio, Fredericksburg, like central Texas region. I didn't take into account like Houston and Dallas area. But just in between San Antonio and Austin, you have like San Antonio is military, healthcare, and bioscience. So I think there's like 4 Air Force bases or so in San Antonio. And you have in Austin, there's a joke that it's the Silicon Valley or mini Silicon Valley. So you have a lot of tech there, our government's there, you have higher education there with the University of Texas. So you just have a lot of strong economic drivers that keep Texas extremely stable, and it's a business-friendly state with no income state tax, and so it just, the economy
Sure.
just keeps growing and growing and growing.
It's funny you mentioned that. I saw a report the other day, and it was what states have all the Californians been moving to?
Yep.
And Texas was number one. It's like 25% from 2017 to present. 25% of Californians who left California moved to Texas. It was the number one state. Then Florida, I think, then Arizona. But I think of Austin and all the companies moving into that area, and really the growth. And so going back more into what the Texas Hill Country is from a vacation standpoint, we know it's, we've got beautiful hills. You've got Canyon Lake as well. There's a beautiful lake with views. I think, is it New Braunfels area that has something, water nearby, or river, or like?
Yeah, so New Braunfels is tubing. So we have the Guadalupe Comal River. So everybody comes down from all over in tubes in the summertime. We have the Whitewater Amphitheater, Green Hall. So still some of the famous country singers come there and sing. And then you have Canyon Lake. So a lot of people, with Lake Travis and Medina and all the other lakes, people are starting to really come down to Canyon Lake. It's beautiful, crystal clear blue water. And then kind of outside of Austin, you have Dripping Springs, which is the wedding capital of Texas. There's over 180 wedding venues within that whole, in Dripping Springs, and then kind of on the outskirts, which leads you up to Fredericksburg. There's over 150 wineries along that whole 290 corridor. Dripping Springs is also kind of getting into the bourbon and the vodka distilleries. So you have like Tito's Vodka Distillery and, just some other famous ones. So there's just a lot of, beer brewing and all of, kind of all along the Fredericksburg, Dripping Springs, all that central Texas. And then you can't forget about Wimberley, a cute little small town that kind of sits between New Braunfels and Dripping Springs that, is very artsy and fun and something cool to check out as well.
So, okay, so people are coming for the wineries, they're coming for weddings, they're coming for whether it's, go down the river or go on the lakes or the view, whatever it is, they're coming, driving in from these three different major metropolitan areas. But how long are they staying? What's kind of and then to follow up with that, what's the seasonality like in the Texas Hill Country?
So Texas, you're looking at about a 10-month season, with the January being one of the slowest months out of the year. But
because it's cold?
Because it's cold,
okay.
Yes. Right. And kind of like you're getting at Christmas, the holidays, right. Everybody's kind of ramping back up. But 10-month season, you are typically looking between Thursday and Sunday stays is going to be the majority of your business. With Monday, Tuesday, you might get that occasionally Wednesday. So it is very weekend based or 4 days based, but it's going to be consistent. So occupancy rates along, all of those areas are higher than 70% right now, the past couple of years, and they continue to stay strong. So, because it's those people that are coming in for the weddings and everything on the weekends. So big groups. And then you also have, Fredericksburg, Dripping Springs, Wimberley is a lot of couples too, anniversaries, birthdays, dates where you want to take your wife or girlfriend or whoever and go celebrate just that, one person and have a romantic getaway. So there's both sides to the coin. It's not just, hey, we're doing big group events or big weddings, that sort of thing.
Now, because this is a 10-month season, which is interesting, I've seen, we personally know some investors who do the glamping. How has that recently grown? And from your perspective, in terms of returns and overall performance, how does that look?
So there are a lot of people who've kind of hopped into that glamping space or yurts, small cabins. I mean, I think it's a good strategy because when you look at the data, some of those, little glamping tents can make, 60 to 100K depending on views, hot tub, unique experience. Everybody wants that unique experience. And so some of those can, perform extremely well, and the price point to get into can be fairly low, but the land. So you got to look at the land cost and the price, depends on the view and all that sort of stuff. But those can yield great returns.
Wow. What, obviously depends on the city or the county or wherever, but when it comes to regulation we'll get to regulation for just the general markets in a second, but the glamping side, what does that look like in general? Like, because you can put multiple structures on an acre. Is there certain rules, or tell us about that?
So that would really depend on like city permitting. Are you in outside the city limits? What do the deed restrictions look like? Of course you want to be in a non-HOA area, but are there any restrictions on the deed restrictions that were placed way back when, that the landowner said, hey, I don't want multiple parcels, or multiple buildings on this land? So that's something that you would have to look at. And then will the city allow it? So depending on the regulations of the city, some like Fredericksburg, you cannot, in certain zoning, will not allow multiple buildings on the plot. So it just really kind of depends.
What about the county? Because you're talking like a lot of this area, it's massive. So a lot of it, land mass, I guess, is in the counties, right? Over the cities, or?
Yes. Now the counties, some have regulation, like Hayes County. Some haven't really gotten that far yet. It's more city regulation.
Right.
So we would just have to dive deep and really look at the location and where it's at.
Okay, gotcha. That's interesting. Let's talk more to the numbers. So when I dive into, if I look at Fredericksburg, Dripping Springs, New Braunfels, Canyon Lake, and STR Insights, I'm not really impressed by the gross ROI. Okay. However, when I dive in deeper and I really study out the individual, micro markets within, things start to open up and you start to see greater returns. So from a investor standpoint, what you've seen, what works best in these markets?
So I think when you're looking at the data, like Kenny mentioned, you look and you see, Fredericksburg, like, there's only a 10% ROI, like, and disregard it. I think you really have to kind of dive in deeper and see, because Texas and this where we're at has seen such a high appreciation. The prices have, they've just gone up and up and up and skyrocketed. And so therefore the lower returns. But you have the regulation now in play where they're regulating and making things tighter. So you're not going to have as many STRs in these spaces. So that's going to, come out and have a play. And then just kind of diving deeper and honing in on, am I looking for that 1 bedroom, where 1 or 2 bedroom, or do I want to go big, and where? And there are deals to be made out there. And then having just a little bit more open mindset. Like, you may not find something turnkey. We may have to renovate or do something unique to the property to get it to where it needs to be. It's becoming harder and harder to find those turnkey properties. But then again, at the right price, it could be a win with putting in some sweat equity and the other things that you're going to have to do.
Yeah. One thing I think that makes them attractive as well, and I guess it depends on the market or the city, specifically the city, is the ability to have add-ons onto the property. Like if you want to build that swimming pool, or, add the hot tub, or completely reno. A lot of markets, you kind of get restricted in what you can and can't add. And so I feel like these areas are a little more open to maybe different design concepts, compared to, other places. So definitely a place where if you get creative, you can find and build opportunity within, from what I'm seeing. Now let's talk about the regulation. New Braunfels has regulation. Fredericksburg has regulation. Dripping Springs, Marble Falls, they all have regulation. Some would argue it's pretty strict, but other people, it might not be as bad. What are you seeing, and what's the general sentiment as well from the community towards short-term rentals?
So what I'm seeing is it is pretty regulated. In my personal opinion, I prefer that, because as an investor, you know what you're getting into already. You're not going to be, they may change, and there may be, some few changes along the way that I think will be a lot easier to adapt to. And it's kind of a more conservative investment, right? Like, hey, these are my regulations. This is what I'm getting into. And we know up front. So I prefer that. And it kind of also sets the tone like, okay, I know there's not going to be any more growth in this area. This is also going to help with my numbers, et cetera, et cetera.
When you say growth, you're talking about supply of short-term
supply.
rentals.
Yes,
Okay.
there's not going to be, as much supply.
Right.
So correct. So I do, I think that they're all positive changes for the industry. And I think, stuff that I hear out there is, yes, I think some people, you're not hearing so many of the normal residents complain, right? It's like the cities have it under control. There's more of a just, this is how it is, type feel. It's not,
Yeah. So there's not a negative sentiment.
Yeah, there's not a negative. It's just kind of, this is what is.
What type of regulations are you seeing in these markets?
So zoning regulations. New Braunfels definitely has zoning. Fredericksburg definitely has zoning, as well as Dripping Springs. So they are trying to keep the short term only in certain parts of the city to kind of guide where they want, that.
And I guess a question that we could theoretically get, I already see someone wanting to know this. How do you, I guess I'll kind of answer this too, but I'll let you go first. How do you find out the zoning for these markets?
It's all on their website.
All on their website. Okay.
Yes.
And just so you guys know, by the time this video drops, STR Insights will have a new, we have a new website called str-regulations.com. You can find markets like New Braunfels, Fredericksburg, Dripping Springs, what their regulation is by zip code, and have the resource to know who to contact. So, for example, Fredericksburg and New Braunfels has zoning regulations on.
Yes, zoning, R1, yep. R2.
And you got to know what those are and know what the right areas are. I'm assuming Sarah knows probably a lot of them, yes. But the cities are big, so it depends. But we provide those resources in that. So check out str-regulations.com for any zip code you're particularly interested in, and we have it provided there. So you've got the regulation if you're in the right zoning, and I like that too, because from my perspective, okay, sweet. If I find a property that's zoned properly in these cities, I mean, I'm on an island, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could be, I'm protected. And so how have you seen that impact returns?
Well, in my area, I feel like it's still shaking out because some of these changes have been recent.
Okay.
So like Fredericksburg, it was a recent change. And I feel like we're still seeing the implications of what that's going to look like. And they also just changed occupancy, people per bedroom, those things. So I feel like we need a little bit more time to see how that shakes out.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. I guess moving on beyond just regulations, let's talk about what works in these markets. So I'm a new investor coming in. What should I be looking for to invest in? Like, what type of property? Does it need to have views, or does it need to have a pool? Like, what exactly do I need to be targeting in these markets that work the best from what you've seen?
Definitely, if you can find a house with a pool, I would highly recommend. You will see an average of about $50,000 more in return having a pool, or in revenue having a pool. Also, a hot tub would be my second best option. Like I said, you could go small or big, on the bedrooms, but definitely views, making the property unique, just having something different that nobody else has.
Okay. So you've got different areas of like different markets. So if I'm in Canyon Lake, what should I do? Do I need to be on the lake, or can I just have views of the lake? If I'm in New Braunfels, do I need to be near the river or near the city? Like, what exactly geographically wise works best in, maybe multiple markets or in the hill country overall?
Yeah. So if you can afford to be on the water, New Braunfels on the river, Canyon Lake on the water, that's great. But having that view of just the hill country, view of the water, being close to town, on any of the towns, walking distance, any of those things are going to obviously increase, your bookings.
Sure. And I mean, I've seen some crazy properties out there. You showed me some too. I'm like, holy cow! Different price ranges all over, and that's something too. Like, what? I mean, I can find properties there that are $1 million plus, and I can find properties that are 300,000. So, what is typically the range? I guess I don't know. It depends on the market, but yeah, elaborate upon that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it always depends, right? But yeah, I mean, you can find, I just sold a 1-bedroom in Fredericksburg for $335. It's a townhouse or their little duplexes, not far from the city. This investor themed it out beautifully. It's the like the Enchanted Garden, so it's kind of romantic for a 1-bedroom. And like I said, it was $335, and I think she will do very well there. But then you can go all the way up, to 2, 3, 1.5 million on the bigger bedroom. So it really just depends what you're looking for. But I do believe we can fit any budget.
Okay, cool. Do you have any recommendations for like which markets do you prefer in the Texas Hill Country that you like the most?
I mean, I prefer all of them. I think that they're all good. I think the city of San Antonio is good too, downtown. We've been talking about the Texas Hill Country, but the city of San Antonio, they are in favor of short-term, they do have regulations as well. They're revitalizing a lot of their city down there.
It's zoning too, right? The regulations there?
They do have some zoning, but it's kind of more flexible,
okay.
But it's more street based. Like 1 out of 8 houses on a street can have STRs. You have like a really long street of 150 houses.
Sure.
You divide it by 8, and that's how many can be on that one side of the street. And so downtown, it's very urban. You have the Spurs, you have the Alamo Dome. We just had the Royal Rumble come. We also have March Madness. There's just a lot of things happening at the Alamo Dome. You have the big Tower of Americas. You have the Henry B. Convention Center. You have the River Walk, which is very popular also in the wintertime. It's one of the best cities for Christmas lights. They do boat tours. You have the Alamo, the historic Alamo. So there's just a lot of things. And so San Antonio is revitalizing all the way around. So I do think that there's some good entry points to get in down there as well right now while things are still fairly cheap.
And the numbers, just looking at STR Insights outside the Texas Hill Country, San Antonio in particular is a great market, one of the higher urban markets overall as well. So whether you're watching this and thinking about purchasing, co-hosting, even rental arbitrage, I think San Antonio is a great market because the regulations and also just the returns on general. And it's very affordable too, right?
Yes, it is in that particular area.
Cool. Well, Sarah, anything else you want to add about the Texas Hill Country? Is there any other knowledge that you can bestow upon us?
I will say that one thing that Fredericksburg is struggling with a little bit is because there's so much STR, they really need long-term rentals and apartments and townhouses and things for other types of residents. So if you're an investor who wants to get into multifamily or townhouses or prefer the long-term rentals, I think there's a huge opportunity there because it's just been so heavily STR based that they don't have enough supply for the demand for long-term rentals.
Sure, that makes sense.
So,
what was I going to ask? Somebody sent me a deal a while ago. It was like, I think it was maybe you guys or something, but it was like an 8-bedroom property in Fredericksburg. Are there a lot of big properties that are short-term rentals in these markets? Or is it kind of like, because there's a lot of wedding venues there. There's a lot of people who want to travel and be with a group. What is not necessarily the wedding venue like, but the places for guests to stay? Is there enough housing supply for them for short-term rentals in terms of, wedding guests?
Yes, I think there could be more. When you look at the data, I think, I don't quote me on this, but I think there's only like 3 or 4 of the 8 to, larger bedrooms. So, are they outliers? I don't know. That's for Kenny. Call Kenny.
Yeah.
So, but I do think, for a lot of those bigger, I do think that there could be more because I think that more families want it to be together when they're coming down for these weddings, stay together and offer that. I mean, I just had one of my Friends the other day went to a wedding. He was like, oh yeah, we all stayed there in cabins. It was so cool. We need more of those. So I do think there is more of an opportunity for that in the Texas Hill Country for sure.
Sure. Okay, cool. That's good to know. I've seen a couple of people send me some opportunities that are, these big 8 bedrooms, 7, 8, 9 bedroom properties. And, my first question is why? This is in the middle of Texas. Sure, it's a great area, but it's not Orlando. It's not, Davenport or Kissimmee or Destin or, these other popular vacation markets. Why are people going there? And they said, well, there's a lot of weddings and there's nowhere to stay. Mm-hmm. And so that's interesting. That's good to know. So, Sarah, what is the best way for people to reach out to you if they're interested in learning more about Texas Hill Country?
Sure. If you're interested, call me or text me. Do not email. I have so many emails, but that's the best way to get a hold of me. And I will definitely text you back, call you. We can set something up and love to chat, help you out.
So one last question. I'm putting you on the spot on this one. Okay. So what do you think you excel at with helping your clients with the most?
Man, that is a tough question. So my husband property manages, we manage our own, and we also, he's really good at analyzation. So I think kind of finding the property and helping give ideas and analyze the property to let you know what it can really do and really perform if you were to put in the time, effort, or any of our recommendations. I think that we really can excel at helping you make the property work or, be better.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, I know I've spoken to a lot of realtors when I look at properties. They don't really know how to analyze deals. That's probably one of the number one issues I've seen is, I'll find a property and I'm like, what do you think it can do? You're from the area. What do you think it could do? And they're like, I know someone down the street and they're doing well. Well, what's well mean? They don't have the answer. So that ability to dive into the actual numbers and the data and provide a little bit of clarity for people who are buying, taking on that risk is huge and helpful. So, but anyway, thank you so much, Sarah. So guys, if you are interested in the Texas Hill Country, you have questions about it, please call or text Sarah. The number is below. And that's it. So thanks everybody for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. Reach out to Sarah if you have any questions.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.